for the solar, for the town's portion of the solar on the library. And this is something they've already discussed with the MVP people, and of the different kinds of ideas that the planning board and the select board had, the MVP folks liked this idea the best. So Becky's working on the grant application, which is due soon. And, it's just one of those things that if we get that grant, it's going to help the town meet the town's portion of this project, which is pretty exciting.
Is it to become a community resilience hub as well?
Well, that's part of what we're
it?
hoping, right? Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, by having, we want it to have power when the power is out so that people have a place to come and charge and get information and in a place that's like naturally open, right? The library is just open. You can go to the library and sit there and get warm and charge your phone and so yeah, that was in our building program. And when we did that initial MVP, sort of like there was an initial process that the town went through where we all filled in surveys and attended stakeholder meetings, and a lot of people kind of talked about the need for a library that can serve that kind of purpose. So
will it cover the battery backup as well, or just the solar?
So I think that we are not going to pursue battery backup because it would be really expensive and take up a lot of space, and that we're going to just do a propane powered generator instead. And no, it won't cover that. It'll just cover the solar.
Okay.
I think, Andrea, Matt said that they have to have a generator for the fire pump.
Yes.
In any case. So that's why, one of the reasons.
Okay.
Or a lot more batteries.
Right. And that would take up a lot of space and be very expensive.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it looks like Matt and Dominic are here. It looks like Matt might be on the phone.
There we are. Sorry, everybody. We jumped on the wrong meeting. Sorry, Marianne. I forgot that you post these sub-design committees as well on the your town website.
We're here.
So Dominic's gonna share. We've got some.
Let me make Dominic the co-host then. And he moved. Let's see. There we go. Okay.
So we've got some plan updates to talk about today. Update on schematic pricing, set progress. And Dominic, are you able to share? Dominic, you're muted, by the way.
There we go. I'm sorry. Everybody can see this?
Yep.
Great. So really what we wanted to do today is, as Matt said, kind of give you an update on what we're going to be submitting. We just have this image again as reference. We can come back to this if we wanted, which we showed you last week, the building view from the exterior from Leverett Road. Moving through, so going to the plan, we had a great meeting with Mary Ann last week, where we spoke to a few little design revisions, and we've included them now, so I'd like to present them. Generally, the building footprint and scheme obviously has not changed, but we have made some tweaks here. So the major changes really was looking to reduce the size of the lobby, so make it a little bit more efficient, but also consider the opening to the meeting room and enlarge that a little bit. So you can see here from the lobby, we have reduced the width now. The clear is 12 feet from the southern wall to the north wall. So previously we had the structural columns exposed. The grid layout has not changed, and again, the building footprint and the roof has not changed in size, but we've finessed this lobby space. So it is a little slender, but we have opened up the threshold condition into the meeting room. So there's a better connection between meeting and lobby. And we feel that you know, having the reception and browsing being in a larger space, and then now with a larger opening to the meeting room, that there's kind of a consideration there that allows for there's kind of a meeting of moves there that allows for this lobby to work. We've also rearranged these two public bathrooms, so we've pushed them together. That's allowed us to make that opening. We've allowed for a niche where we are considering a furniture piece that has been gifted to the library. This would be a good display a location for that display case. We now have the drink fountains nested to the kitchen wall, and we've reconsidered how this kitchen may be entered. In this scheme, we've removed the access door because of push-pull clearances for the door, restricting us. We wanted to start by getting the drink fountain there and removing the door and proposing that as a potential for this kitchen. So it'd be kind of a galley-style kitchen, and because entry is within this vestibule, this threshold condition, we feel like this might work. Also, you know, the kitchen is kind of recessed behind the point of entry because we are allowing for this drink fountain. So this is a slight revision there. We've looked at some of these mechanical rooms, kind of squeeze them a little bit, move them around a little bit, as well as the AV and storage rooms. So we're considering the square footages. The meeting room has now grown to come much closer to this 700 that we wanted to hit. Generally, this side of the building is still working in the same way. The exterior storage room, you'll notice, has swapped with the water service room, so that entry to that room can be made from the south side and not the east.
Dominic, I think the label actually for the meeting room is not correct in terms of area.
That one is off.
Because I think we resized it, so it's like 702 square feet now.
Got it. So that's a typo, then I have to update that. So then working to the reception.
Yeah.
Working through the rest of the building, very similar layout Some of the numbers have tweaked a little bit. The staff workroom has increased to get us close to that 200 requirement, 200 square foot requirement. We've that was pretty much the changes that we were discussing. We have increased the condition of this central spine wall, which is housing shelving to allow for additional collections. And we can go over those numbers with you on subsequent pages. So we're much closer with collection storage. We are also showing, we were also looking at counts here at the what were formerly the study carrels, and we have numbers, Marianne, where this would be a low shelving unit instead of study carrels. So that has helped us a lot. So I'll present those numbers to you as well. That was kind of a high level update on the plan. You've noticed as well that we have included some shelving here at the reception browsing next to the circulation desk. So that has helped us as well. Lauren, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. Something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I've gone back and forth about suggesting it, but I think it would be worth looking at before the end of SD. And that would be, have you ever considered swapping the toilets with the janitor's closet, thereby increasing the opening to the meeting room significantly? It reduces the opening into reception browsing, but I think it might be worthwhile to look at that.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I think one thing we've always been considering is this entry porch vestibule and lobby connection, kind of this centralized spine that runs east-west, and then having the two bathrooms mirror across and have the janitor, take that location. It's something we can study for sure. It's been out, and then on the other side is to keep a clean line of the reception browsing. It'd be interesting to see how that over here might work. I have a feeling it might push into, some of this program. We'd have to reconsider it, but it's something we can investigate for sure.
I was thinking just literally swap it, mirroring the two. I hear you about the spine and all of that, but I think that's an architectural consideration that might be trumped by the functionality of having it the other way. That's just my opinion.
Lauren, I worry a little bit about how, so the opening right now is can't remember if it's 10 or 12 feet between the lobby and the meeting room. It's 10'8" clear right now. If we were to swap the toilets with the janitor's room, as you suggest, we'd have basically the entire back wall of the meeting room would be open. And I worry that there isn't then an easy way to separate it from the rest of the library when you do want to separate it. I mean, I understand that we want to have it do both. We want it to be able to expand, but we also want to be able to close it off so that it can be a functional room. And if that's
There are
a
folding
20-foot
walls.
opening,
There
if
are
that's a
folding
20-foot
walls.
opening, I don't know how easy that's going to be to manage.
Have you ever seen the the folding wall in the children's room in the Johnson building at BPL, between the main children's space and the program space?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking. But again, this is just an idea that I think it's worth looking at. It's not necessarily gonna work. I just think it would allow for a true expansion of the meeting room into the lobby when that would be desired.
We can look at it.
Sounds good.
Maybe we should probably find out from our estimator what the cost of, I mean, those doors are not inexpensive, right? That's a different solution than kind of a wall mounted slider, sliding barn door, kind of like what's at Wendell. So we can maybe ask him to price that, just sort of an operable folding wall of that width and a certain height. What would the cost of that be, so we understand the premium.
I also wonder about the sight lines if you do that, if it blocks the desk, because you can't see around then to the bathrooms, and you can't see necessarily, I guess you can still see the same into the meeting room and the other areas, but that entryway or that exit way, just the sight lines there, that would be the only thing that I would bring up for that.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I have a question about the walls. So the elementary school has movable walls, and there are people who can do it, as a single person, but if, the movable walls would have to be something that would be operable by one person. If we had that anywhere in the library. So.
Just one other comment. In the, I guess it would be the southernmost bathroom right against the outside wall. I would try to avoid having plumbing on those outside walls. Try to get those on the interior walls if possible. Certainly won't affect the estimate, but just practicality.
And I
Yeah,
have a question about the janitor closet. Does it have to be 60? I think it says 65 square feet. And again, I'll sort of do my exercise with tape, but like, how big is I guess there's probably no sort of standard closet size, but
it could definitely be reduced, Marianne, to function as a janitor closet only. But the consideration here is to actually serve as additional storage. So you
Okay.
could get some, metal shelving on
Right.
one of those walls, still have your sink,
Okay.
your mop sink as well.
Okay. All righty. Actually, that makes sense. It's, like if we were going to try, I mean, I feel like we did extend the size of that meeting room opening from last week.
We did.
And to a point where I'm feeling more satisfied with it. But if we, reduced the janitor's closet by, I don't know, could it be 30 feet instead of 65 feet, and then put it where the interior bathroom is, and then put the bathroom there, then it makes it a slightly wider opening. Or even if it was a 40-foot janitor's closet.
Yeah, that's a possibility. We would lose a little bit of room in the staff workroom to get that room sized for the toilet, but
Right.
we can look at that.
Okay. Right. And okay, these are just things to think about. And then it would make that opening maybe 12 feet instead of 10 feet. Okay.
Do you know,
But I
just
think-
as a frame of reference, do you know what the width of the Wendell opening
No,
is?
but I'll email them and ask. Stephen, do you have a guess? You were just there.
Yeah. Well, there are two sliding doors. And I would guess each of those doors could be 6 feet. So I'm going to guess and say 12-ish.
Mhm.
And if I could just interject, the difference between this scheme and the Wendell situation is that the doors are centered on the space.
Right.
When you look at the layout of this, especially with that window directly opposite the opening between the meeting room and the lobby, your presenter is going to be on the other side of the room. It's not gonna, so it's not exactly the same
Yeah, we've
visual
looked at-
access.
We've looked at flipping this end of the building so that the meeting room. If we took the fire pump, ATS and electric room and flipped them to the other side, and and did the same with AV and storage, we could potentially get the meeting room centered on that opening. Which I think would address what you guys are talking about in terms of having the sort of presentation wall centered on that opening. Or we can continue to study that.
What are the rectangles in the vestibule?
They are lockers for after hours access.
Okay.
Scrutinizing the program again, Marianne, I saw that there was a small requirement for that. So we've just located them there just to acknowledge that we're considering them. I think how we actually have placed them, maybe we could actually nest them within a drywall niche, so that they're really clean and kind of flush within a drywall condition. Right now, we have glazing, glazed condition for the vestibule entry.
I think we're gonna have to put those outside the vestibule because the way that the door hardware is going to work, it's the exterior doors that are going to be the locking doors, not the interior doors. So, I think what we could look at though is putting those lockers in the same exterior wall as the book drop, so that they're under a covered porch, they're next to the entrance, and
yeah,
you can just walk up undercover and use the locker. If we're going to do this, it would be good to know how many lockers we're talking about so we can size them. But I would think
Have you
putting them in the
seen them?
exterior wall might be better. I've not seen them in person. I've seen installation photos from a couple of
I've
examples.
seen many versions of this and know
Yeah.
a fair bit about them.
Right. Lauren, have you seen any awesome ones?
I am not going to say that I have ever heard of an installation that is problem-free.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think the lower tech you go, the better, like in Monterey, they just literally have an old post office set of lockers that was donated, and they changed the combination on the padlocks as needed. It's not like it's connected to the ILS or anything like that.
Right. Right.
Low tech is a lot less complicated than high tech, but as long as you have it undercover, it doesn't have to be in a conditioned space. So
Right. Right.
You could talk to Randolph. They seemed pretty happy with theirs. I was just there for the last meeting and theirs look like that. They're outside underneath a covered porch in the back. So you could talk to them about their installation because they seem pretty happy with all of it.
I would like to have it be something that the staff interacts with from indoors, like the Irving situation, but I want them to work better than the Irving lockers.
well, we found out what the problem with the Irving situation was, and I think we've talked about that. That
Right,
they are
right.
battery powered, not
Right,
wired in, and
Yes.
they just have to be wired in.
right,
Or
Right.
they could be manual with padlocks and still have an through wall and have an access port at the back. It doesn't have to be electrical necessarily.
yes, right. And we can, and I think we have time to figure that out. That doesn't have to be done for schematic design. We just have to have space dedicated to it. And then realize that there'll be some cost involved. in
Yeah.
those, some ridiculous amount of money for lockers. So,
Not necessarily. There is a set of lockers in, I think it's Marshfield, somewhere in Southeast, where they literally got like school lockers and built a little housing for them. It wasn't expensive. So, you know,
yeah,
Great. So we'll continue that effort then in DD.
okay,
As far as pricing, really, this would only be picked up, the lockers themselves, I would consider them as FF&E. And so, you know, as for this pricing effort, it's not even going to be affected. I just wanted to get them in the plans, and I'm glad, you know, we're now starting to talk about it. So we'll keep that effort up for DD.
Dominic, I'll just interject, if the intent is to build them into an enclosure or into
Yeah.
a wall, I would not want them to be FF&E. Put them in as Division 10 and let them coordinate the rough openings and finishes and everything else,
Okay.
please.
Sounds good. Yep. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
right. And then as far as how many, you know, 6, and 6 lockers big enough to hold a stack of books, not, you know, a jacket and boots and a lunchbox. So, but I'll do some research on that too. Okay.
Okay, so I mean,
Right.
6 should be pretty easy to locate next to the book
Yeah.
shop, I would think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Was there anything else with regard to the plan? We've got ceiling plans and some building sections and elevation. Penny, I see your hand is raised. I'm not getting anything from you, Penny. I'm not sure if you have a question.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted, I didn't. 2 quick questions about the north end of the building. One
Mhm.
is, it looks like you have a door to the outside out of the children's room.
That's correct.
And to me, that seems like a bad location, that it would be better coming out of the adults' room. And I wondered if you considered that, and if so, why you chose to do it on the children's room.
Sure. Initially, we're looking to maximize seating for the adults and create the reading nook / periodicals room. And so having a doorway there with clearances would be in conflict with the seating. It's something we can investigate for sure. I understand the potential concern to have children have easy access out. It is a condition that we commonly put in our children's rooms to allow for an ease of connection for outdoor programming for children. And we've seen success in other projects where, you know, there was a landscaped element that allowed for, you know, groups of children to congregate and maybe have a reading session or some sort of outdoor programming, and that we facilitated that with, you know, direct access. Matt, I'm not sure if I'm missing anything else there.
No, that was it. We had thought that it would be advantageous, I think, to have a way to get children outside for outdoor programming and activities, outdoor story time, that kind of thing. You know, the door is a little bit tucked around the corner, so it's maybe a little harder to monitor than if it was at the end, you know, at the end of the adult room. You know, I suppose we could look at that, and would still be a way for kids to get outside. They just have to go through the pass through and the shelving wall to get, you know, and through the adult room to get outside. Marianne, I don't know if you have a feeling about that.
So the only thing I have to say is, I also had somebody come to me and request access to the doors for children and families through the children's room. So, so I think it's one of those things that, you know, I think the adult room is pretty crowded. And it works there, and children should always be, you know, small children who would be endangered by going outside should always be supervised by adults, you know, by their own adults, by their parents, or other caretakers in a public library setting anyway. And it's going to be a big, you know, municipal level door that a tiny little child wouldn't be able to operate on their own anyway, right? So I think I'm probably okay with it there.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I have one other question about that end of the building, and
Mhm.
goes back to visiting, I think it was the Norwell Library, and I noticed this particularly in the children's room. You had low shelving along the wall with seating areas on top of that. And to me, having low shelving in both rooms does a couple of things that would make me happy. It provides more shelving. It could potentially provide a place to sit, and it breaks up the monotony of the glass coming down to the ground on the end of the building. So I'd like you to consider that.
So you're
Yeah.
talking about, yeah.
Yeah, we can consider that. That shelving in Norwell, it's really not for books. It's more cubbies for, you know, kids' toys and activities, and you know, bins of blocks and puzzles and that kind of stuff.
I think
Now, we wouldn't recommend putting collections
Yeah.
where people are gonna sit. That would block access.
Mhm.
I did have
But
a
we can look
tea-
at incorporating that kind of, you know, window seat at some of the perimeter glazing.
I did have a teacher say to me that they were concerned about all of the glazing at the end of the children's room, and that children would find that to be distracting. And I kind of had an idea. So I would love to have browsing bin shelving. Laura knows exactly what it's called, but it's the type of shelving for picture books where you shelve the picture books face front so that people
It's
can
called
flip through.
browsing bins.
It's
See?
called browsing
Yeah.
bins. Good.
Yeah.
It's, you know, like if you were looking at records in a record store.
Yeah.
Even now. And so and those are low. And I thought those could be all around that corner. And then we do need some shelving for, you know, kits and bins of blocks and things like that too. So,
Mhm.
okay.
Maybe, yeah, we could incorporate, you know, browsing bins with low shelving in a bench condition and have a real integrated consideration around that in the north elevation.
And one last thing, just a general question, where is the space for the library of things? Is that in there somewhere, Marianne? I just don't see it anywhere.
Right. Well, so I had really sort of pictured that the actual things would be somehow behind the circulation desk on some kind of shelf unit, or even in the staff workroom. And then, you know, there would be a small display area somewhere where, you know, where people, you know, either there's a binder with pictures of the things and cards that people take. So the things wouldn't be out on the floor so much. But so, you know, that shelving area right next to the reception browsing, a section of that could be, the other thing that libraries will do is they'll take DVD cases and put in cards for their library of things, and they have a picture of the thing on the cover. So so the things would be stored, you know, behind the desk, and then and then somehow the collection would be highlighted for people outside on the library floor, and they would then indicate what they want. But you tend to keep, libraries are tending to keep those things, you know, the more expensive, bigger things behind the scenes.
Thank you.
Except for like games and puzzles, and those would just be on shelving somewhere in the children's room.
Mhm. Okay. Stephen, I saw your hand up.
Yes, so I've been spending a fair amount of time in the Wendell Library, the meeting room, and they have a kitchen. And the kitchen has a door on it, and which allows things to be placed on the counter. We'll just say the kitchen doesn't have to look pristine when it's not in use. So I think there's the advantage of not having a door is you have to keep it neater and tidy. But if you do have the door, you don't have to be as concerned. So I think there's some concerns about not having a door on the kitchen.
Okay.
Could be a slider.
A pocket door.
I think we could. We were able to do that in Duxbury on a recent project. So
Right.
I think we could. I mean, it's a slider is not an egress door, but I think for a room of this size and occupancy, we might be able to do it. We'll have to check with our code consultant.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Lauren?
Yeah, just one more thought about the Library of Things. Some libraries, if you, I'm assuming that wall between the staff workroom and the main service desk is glass, and some libraries are putting shelves inside the staff workroom with glass on the outside and putting their libraries of things, the actual objects there, so people can see them, but they can't get at them. And then they have the card system for taking them out. That's just another idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
If there aren't any other questions, we can move on.
Thank you guys for, I feel like you were really responsive to my comments last week, and I'm happy about that.
I'm glad.
Glad to hear
Excellent. We are now looking at a reflected ceiling plan. So this is the ceiling condition throughout the whole library. This really indicates the light blue again, shows you a drop ceiling condition. So that is over this central zone. And then we also have that condition over the threshold into the meeting room, and then picking up these other miscellaneous spaces. So the vestibule lobby would be open to the roof structure and roof decking, the meeting room as well, and as well as that, the adults and children's. So the way in which we've laid out the structural elements that would allow us to get some mechanical ductwork and other services, fire sprinklers, to serve those spaces up high and within the structural purlins. So you create a virtual ceiling with the structural purlins, wherein, you know, some of these services can be nested up in that zone. So going back to some of these ceiling conditions, the reception and browsing computers would be a drywall, a finished drywall ceiling. We've used an acoustic drywall product with perforations in it that would meet acoustical requirements. So that's a nice clean way to problem solve that condition, have a nice clean ceiling that would be at 10 feet tall. The staff workroom and studies could also be 10 feet tall. The janitor closet could drop down to 8 feet. The book drop could be 8 feet. These square hatches are indicating an ACT, an acoustic ceiling tile. So that's kind of the more generic ceiling finish. We feel, you know, you can save some money in these spaces, and we commonly spec that for these types of rooms. So the book drop storage rooms, again, ACT, director's office and teams could be a little higher. And then the staff and children, the family restroom would be drywall at 8 feet tall. Similarly, across this condition, the threshold between lobby and meeting room, we'd like to match the reception and browsing. So that would be 10 foot, while everything else could drop down to 8 feet. Again, a diagram to show you, this is part of a drawing that we do use for the SD set, and it gives you an indication of what we're thinking for some of these finishes in these spaces.
The rooms that have acoustic tile ceiling, what
Yes.
height are the walls going to be? Are the walls going to go up to the structure, or are the walls only going up to the ceiling
They'll go all the way up for fireproofing.
for fireproofing? I'm more concerned about the house.
So we need it for acoustic separation between.
Acoustic separation, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're going up to the deck.
They'll go up to structure.
All the way up, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
We
how
do
do you
need fireproofing down in these rooms, that's where it would be. So, yeah.
Right, yeah. And how do you access the mechanical equipment?
So that would be through roof hatches. The mechanical equipment will be hung from the roof and be served that way. So the ceiling tiles can be removed and effectively be your access to the mechanical equipment. It's something we haven't fully coordinated. We've really just zoned out at this point. It'd be great to keep access panels out of this reception browsing, but it depends on where the mechanical equipment lays out and how they interface with these interior wall partitions going all the way.
Generally
Yeah.
speaking, with the VRF system, we need to provide access directly below the unit. And so we need to understand where the units are going to be located before we can kind of figure out how we're doing access. But all the access would be through the ceiling in those spaces. And the access panel is directly below for, servicing and changing filters primarily.
Mhm.
Are you gonna have a ship's ladder somewhere or just?
No, we don't need to get people up in there. There's no floor. It's not a mechanical attic. It's just plenum space with equipment hung up in that cavity. And that's similar to the way that the equipment was done in Norwell.
Mhm.
Above, like in the area above the circ desk, for instance, that's there's just mechanical plenum space. The equipment's hung from the structure above, and we have access panels to get up in there. And the panels are sized to service the unit, get a person up there, standing on a ladder up through that opening.
Got it.
Can I just make a quick comment about the perforated drywall ceiling? We haven't yet done an official post-occupancy survey in Norwell, but when I was there with Penny and Elaine, the librarian mentioned that the perforated drywall is not giving them the acoustical performance that they had hoped for. It's a bit of a problem. So I think, there might be a case for having ACT in that whole space. I know that architecturally it's not as beautiful, but it's cheaper and a better performing surface for acoustics.
That's interesting to hear, Lauren. There is another drywall product that is acoustically rated. Matt, I haven't used it. I know in our office we may have spec'd it on other projects. It is not perforated, but it has, I believe it has a texture to the surface that allows you to get your acoustical performance.
Yeah,
Similar to an
it's an
ACT.
acoustic drywall that's that has an STC rating. It's a little more difficult because you can't paint it the way that you can the perforated gyp. We're using it at the Faneuil branch for the BPL. So we've got it installed, but that's still in construction, so we don't have any kind of post-occupancy data. To Lauren's point, we can look at an ACT system in there that, we could, there are a number of systems out there that are pretty nice. Armstrong has one that, like the Tech Zone ceiling from Armstrong, is a pretty good looking one. And that gives us a little more ability to access equipment up there without having to do access panels in a hard ceiling. So we can look at that. I'm surprised about the performance because we used it in Webster, and it actually seems to work quite well there. Maybe it's because there's a lot more of it in Webster than there is in Norwell. So just as a percentage of the kind of hard surfaces, there's a greater percentage of that perforated gypsum there. But I think the first thing is we've got to understand where the mechanical equipment is going to, and then that may drive that decision a little bit.
Stephen, question from you.
Yes, I forgot to ask this before. In the meeting room, how do you imagine the natural light in there? And the reason I ask is at the Wendell Library, in their meeting room, they've got windows on two sides, and the room is always light filled. And I find it very inviting, a very inviting space. And I remember when we visited the Leverett Library, I don't remember how much fenestration was in there, but it was a much darker space naturally. Not nearly as inviting. And at the Wendell Library, they have two large tables that they actually have set up so you can move them around very easily. They have this very simple wheel attachment that goes up and down. And I think, people will tend to go into that space when it's not being used as a meeting area. For instance, if you're in the adult area and there are a lot of kids and they're bothering you, you could walk down into the meeting room and sit. My question is that an inviting space in terms of the natural light on a normal basis? I know that's a south and east orientation. So you've got, some glazing at the south, and some on the east. But.
Right.
Yeah, the challenge is always going to be the covered outdoor program area next to it, right? Having the covered porch area directly adjacent to the meeting room is going to reduce the amount of natural light that you get in just because you've got that overhang. I think you'll get the western exposure, you'll get sun, the overhang there isn't as great, and I think you'll get more natural light coming in at that corner than you do from the glazed door condition that we have in the south wall of the meeting room. But it's, I think as it's laid out here, it's not going to be as bright as the Wendell Library, I don't think, because it's not fully to the exterior. It's kind of inboard of the edge of the roof in two, on its two exposures. You'll get daylight in there. It'll be a pleasant room, but it's not going to be like light streaming in, through it, as if the roof edge was right at the edge of the wall.
I think in the next phase as well, it would be our intent to show some interior views as things develop. So it's something we can continue to study and give you guys a sense of it before we go too far down the road. Well.
Yeah, we also do, our lighting consultant is going to be doing daylighting analysis and studies for us in design development. So that's something we can ask them to model for us, and we can find out exactly how much natural light we're getting there, and get a better sense and see if there's anything we can do to maximize the amount of natural light.
Any other questions for the ceiling? I wanted to go back to the plan just to quickly speak to some floor finishes. It's a slide I'm going to put in and send out to you. I don't have it in the set right now, but I just wanted to explain quickly because I think it's pertinent that we would consider tile to be in these spaces that you see here. I don't know if that's the best color. So as you enter the vestibule, there would be walk-off mats. The lobby would have tile that would go to tile in the bathrooms, and you would have a tile condition at the reception browsing and the threshold into the meeting room. We would consider resilient flooring, Marianne, for staff in behind here. So that's something, it's a more forgiving surface as far as if you're standing on it for long periods of time, something we commonly do. But tile is hard wearing and great for, the winter months as well. The walk-off mat obviously cleans your shoes well enough, no matter what you're kind of traipsing at entry, traipsing in. But this is kind of a common strategy that we use for these spaces.
When
When
you say tiled, are you saying VCT or are you saying ceramic?
No,
tile?
like it would be like a porcelain tile.
Okay, thank you.
We've used a product that looks a lot like bluestone or or slate. It's a high quality tile floor.
Okay, thank you.
Moving into adults and children's, these would both be finished with carpets. The family and staff room would be tiled again, but the adults, children's would be carpet. Staff, workroom and study would be carpet, as well as teams and directors. We would potentially go with tile or resilient flooring in the book drop or storage room. We would go with exposed concrete in the janitor closet, and then all these mechanical spaces would be exposed, finished concrete, but we wouldn't put any additional finished material on those spaces. And lastly, the meeting room, we often finish in wood. So you would get wood plank flooring in there, usual maple, and that would continue. We could continue that into the storage room just to ease of moving your chairs and tables across this threshold. I will get you a finished floor plan and I'll put that into the set just for you to have to reference prior to our SD set. I will issue that today. But I wanted to quickly mention those as we're talking about finished materials for the ceiling as well. I see some hands. I'm not sure who was first on.
Dominic.
You're on mute.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that for the teen area and for part of the children's area, I would recommend doing some resilient flooring. The teens are going to be eating in that area. Things are going to be spilled, even though if you have a no food or drink policy, it will happen. They've been in school all day. They come out and they're hungry. The children's area, especially because Marianne, I believe you plan on doing some programming in that space. So you want something that you can easily clean. And so in that, whatever area you'll be using, which looks more like the, that play area and the computer area, you want to make sure that you have a flooring where you can easily clean up after craft programs and the like.
It's a great comment. Thank you.
So Elaine mentioned a performance problem with the wood flooring. I think it was in Norwell. So, or the flooring in the meeting room. So I wanted to know what that product was and if you know off the top of your heads. But when you mean wood, do you mean just hardwood floors like I have in my
Yes,
home? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
tongue and roof, that's right, yeah.
Okay.
but a
Um,
different installation. Typically we do, this is going on down on a slab, and so we usually do a built-up floor on resilient pads with a vapor barrier under it. So it's a little more complicated than a residential system where you're just nailing it to the joist. I don't know what the issue is at Norwell. That comment that Elaine made was the first I'd heard that they had any issues. And I don't know what performance issues means, if it's not holding up well or what. Is it, Dominic, I don't know if you've heard anything from them. I
I
have
have not, but remembering back to the comment, it sounded like there was a damage. So I'm not sure how it got damaged. Did
There were-
something get dropped?
right.
Right, there were
There were
chips out of it or
dings.
something?
And then she said there were places where it was sort of where there were gaps starting.
the gaps.
so I was
are
wondering if
expansion
it was-
joints.
Yeah. If
They-
it was that fake wood flooring.
No, it's hardwood flooring, it's
okay.
maple, and the joints that she's talking about are actually expansion joints
Okay.
in the floor every like 15 feet.
Mhm.
It's a big room, and so floor that big is going to move with
Right.
know
Right. Okay.
seasonally, and so they put
Right.
those. It's like a 16th inch control joint, every say 15 feet.
Right. So what I was going to ask is if you so I love the idea of hardwood floors anywhere in the world, in any room. But I was wondering if there's a potentially less expensive floor that you could have priced for that room, because hardwood is probably going to be our most expensive option. And then I also, after hardwood floors, I love tile floors. And you really do not want to let me pick the tile because, we'll be importing something from Italy. So you want to make sure I'm out of town when you're choosing the tile. But is there a less expensive option that we could price out? Is Marmoleum, which I know is a brand name, less expensive than tile, and
Yes, it is.
could that potentially be in the in all of those areas that you've proposed tile, and could we price out both?
Or just the wood floor or also the tile floor?
Well, so for the tile floor, and then I'm gonna look to you to make a recommendation for that meeting room area, knowing that that we'll have people want to have concerts in there, and people want to watch movies in there, and they want to have poetry readings in there, and they also want to do fitness classes in there. So flooring that would support all of those things, and wood will definitely support all of those things and will look beautiful. And I have wood recommendations about what we should use. But I just I want us to have a more economical backup plan.
Marianne, we're gonna have those for just about everything on the project.
Okay, great.
We're
good.
gonna go into this with this is what we would ideally like to have, and we're gonna price it, and we're gonna see where we are, and then we're gonna go back and say, okay, we've got to think about where we can save money. And generally speaking, just so before we even get there, reducing the cost of finishes is never the thing that solves your budget problem. It gets you part of the way there, but generally speaking, the best you're going to do is like a 10% reduction based on material changes. You mentioned the Marmoleum flooring in there, and the cheapest thing would be to put marmoleum directly down on the slab. That's going to be pretty unforgiving for certain activities like yoga. And so if you want to take those things into consideration, then you do the marmoleum on, a couple layers of plywood on resilient pads over the slab. And then it's basically the only thing that you've changed is the cost of that top layer. So, we'll definitely explore all those things at the end of SD, and we'll come up with a list of value options that we can choose from, that everything from materials to, there's going to be a whole host of things that we're going to look at.
Right.
But I think what we'll do is we'll leave wood in for now for pricing, and then know that, we may have to consider some options. We've done, for lobby reception browsing, the cheapest thing might be just the finished concrete. You treat the top of the slab and you use that as your finished floor. That's probably the least expensive option that's going to hold up well, and still potentially look good. So we'll have a list of those that we compile at the end of SD.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Penny, did you have a question?
Well, I was thinking about Stephen's comment about lighting in the meeting room, and I wondered if rather than it opening onto the covered porch area, it could open to the west and you could find a different spot for avian storage and allow more light in that way. And-
Yeah.
And then the other most random comment is, as you're thinking about flooring in that room, the other things that happen in there are craft programs like carving jack-o'-lanterns and painting and a lot of messy things. So the floor needs to be, and maybe wood floor is fine for that, but I've seen a fair number of sort of messy projects happen under the umbrella of the library.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. That's sorry, Matt.
I think your suggestion about looking at maybe somehow flipping things around so that the meeting room can push west is a good one. And I think that needs to be studied along with this relationship between meeting room and lobby, and, potentially widening that. And as we look at, Lauren's suggestion of maybe moving the toilet rooms or swapping janitor with toilet, I think we can also look at some of these possibilities to flip things around. I agree with you, Penny and Stephen, that it would be nice to get more potential for natural light into the meeting room. So if we could get it to an exterior wall, that would be great. So we'll study that.
I think to your point, Matt, too, the intent with this scheme is to simplify the roof to the greatest extent possible, and starting to have a pivot in programming, the roof may need to, and accommodate that, and then include a jog as well. Right?
Yeah.
Does one of the restrooms have a baby changing table?
They both will.
Okay.
They all will, I guess.
Okay,
All three will. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, all three. We're
Yeah.
still contemplating removing the third toilet if we can. This was something we talked about with Marianne, and we want to dig into it a little bit more with our code consultant, but we want to understand what the implications are of not providing a third toilet. And I think it's driven by occupancy. And so it probably is going to come down to a conversation with the local code official and how they determine occupancy for plumbing count. Two toilets limits you to, I think, 99 occupants. Once you hit 100 occupants, it kicks you into that third fixture. And is 99 reasonable? And I intuitively I would say yes. I mean, if you had if you had an event that had 50 people in the meeting room, which is maximum occupancy, that means you can have 49 other people in the building. And is that ever going to happen? I don't know. I mean, you guys would know better than me. But if we could get the occupancy down, and maybe it's we might have to post occupancy to make sure that that's in the eyes of the local jurisdiction, that's, we're kind of in compliance, that we might be able to eliminate that third bathroom. And if we can either increase, teens and storage, or we can try to reduce square footage overall by virtue of losing that 70 square feet. So that's something I think we want to get a better handle on.
So I've got one comment. With all the various options of floor finishes and such, the cleaning equipment, let's probably not consider reducing that janitor's closet or storage too much, because you'll need space for that equipment. Otherwise it, ends up in the electric room.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely ample, supply for cleaning products and a mop bucket and
Vacuum, maybe a floor scrubber if you got tile or something.
Yeah. We'll work with you definitely as we get more into it, as to all the storage requirements. Yeah.
Dominic, I don't know if you have an updated program summary or not.
I do, yes.
Okay.
Do you want to jump to it?
Well, just go ahead and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I'm just mindful of time.
Yeah, sure. So this is a section showing again, you have seen previously a similar section. Again, it's showing, this is cutting straight through the middle of the building, north to south. So you see the meeting room, the threshold condition with the drop ceiling, then opening up to the lobby. Reception browsing is a 10-foot ceiling condition, and then opening up to the children's and adults behind. I'll send this to you. You see the PV on the roof as well. We have some exterior elevations that I wanted to just show you that we're starting to think about the fenestration and finished materials. Here we're holding onto a slate shingle as the main finish, but Matt will talk to this further on in the presentation. So again, here it gives you a sense of all four sides of the building. I will continue on. So these will be in the set for you to have a look at with more detail. I wanted to give you a collection summary. So Marianne, we've gone through the programming document again. Sure. Is this better?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So looking at linear feet requirements for adults, we have 685. We're currently at 582. If we populate those study carrels with low shelving, like 3 high shelving, and the perimeter shelving, we would max out to 7 high. So that puts the bottom. This is a question to you. We normally initially specify 6 high shelving at the perimeter of adults, but you can max out to 7 depending on the exact needs of certain collections, the spacing between shelving. That 7th shelf would be 6'6". So it would be overhead. It could be supplemented with small little step stools, that you see commonly in some libraries. So that would be one way to really maximize your collection for adults. And you can see there we're at about 85%. Before I move on, Lauren, do you have a comment?
Yeah, how far off the floor is the bottom of the first shelf? And is that 6'6"? Is that to the top of the top shelf or the bottom of the top shelf?
It's to the bottom of the top shelf, and the first shelf is around 6 inches, so it's 4 inches plus kind of the shelf edge. So it's 4 inches, yeah, and then another 2, so you're looking at about 6 inches off the floor to start with. So I wanted to mention that that is our kind of consideration for adults. I think elsewhere throughout the program, Marianne, we're meeting requirements now, which is great. Looking at the numbers that you need. So children's 476 against your 495, so we're around 96% there. Teens, we're a little under. At 126 against the 146. We could, look at that a little more as we move into DD. Circulation desk, we have ample, so we can pull back a little bit to what you would like to see. Reception and browsing, you have 32 that you would like. Currently, we have 90, so we can reconsider how that lays out. In the aggregate, we're about 98%, which is excellent. So I just wanted to, again, maybe this is for you to have and scrutinize, and you can get back to me with questions, Matt, in the interest of time, if we move to the program square footages. So looking at total gross building, we're at 597. You see that number here against the initial program of 5,428. We have reduced the lobby condition. You can see that we're still up a little bit. Adults, we are at 677 for the collections itself. You can see here overall in adults, considering all the programming, we're just under. Teens, we're very close. Children's, we're just over. The community meeting room, which I need to revise that note, we're actually at 712 square foot, Marianne. I know that was under before, so we've brought that up now. We're very close to, we're just over the community programming. And staff, we're just under, considering some of these spaces. Matt, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to highlight.
No, but I do want to double check a couple of these numbers, because I think that reception browsing number, I think is off. And the adult collection number also, I think, is off.
Yeah.
Based on the latest CAD plans. I think adult collections was a little over 700 square feet, inclusive of the reading nook and the periodicals area. So that's going to push that number closer to the program number.
Yeah.
And I think that reception browsing, based on the latest plan, is more like I don't know, 320 square feet or something. It's not nearly the 722. I think, I don't know where that number came from. So that we've got a couple of edits to this, but
okay.
The overall gross at 5,971 is consistent with what we're getting in the AutoCAD plan. And so that's good. We've gotten down below the 6,000 target that we had. We never felt like that 5,428 from which was referenced in the estimate from whenever you guys did the estimate last. We never felt like that was a realistic number, given the amount of services that we need to provide in this building, and the fact that it's a small building, so we're a little bit more burdened by those things than we would be if it was a bigger building. So I feel pretty good about where we are relative to the total gross at being under 6,000. Obviously, as we move into DD and we continue to refine plans, we'll look for areas where we can tighten things up further. But I feel like we're in pretty good shape now in terms of the overall square footages.
Right. Then I wanted to go to some exterior images. I'm just bringing that up now. Hang on a second. Give me a second here.
I'm happy that we're under 6,000.
Yeah, us too. And we'll keep working at that to tighten things up more. You know, even things like as we start to define what the exterior wall assembly is, and you know, it's drawn as 12 inches thick right now, and we may find that it only needs to be 10 inches thick, and that's, you know, that actually saves a surprising amount of square footage over a, you know,
Oh, wow.
150-foot long building. So can you zoom out a little bit so we're getting the titles on the, there you go. So we wanted to talk a little bit about exterior materials. I think what we will list as the kind of base option is Alaskan yellow cedar. It's, you know, it's a good quality product. I would recommend that we stain it or at least treat it with a pre-weathering stain to minimize differential weathering over time. But I think staining it will eliminate that condition where, you know, as it weathers gray, it's going to weather differently in different areas depending on exposure. And so one way to address that is with a weathering stain. Another way is to actually stain it like the two images on the bottom. That top left image, I don't know if that's a weathering stain or if that's like a solid body stain. The image in the upper right is just weathering naturally. It goes in, it's quite yellow when it goes in, but it weathers to a nice silver gray. So this looks like it's probably been, you know, it's maybe a year into its life, I'm guessing, that photograph based on the amount of weathering. You know, wood is a challenging product, especially in wet environments. You know, Dale came up to me at the community meeting and asked that we not do wood siding given the challenges that I guess you guys have had in town with other wood buildings. So it's, you know, it's a consideration. So an alternate to this, and this is a product that we are researching for a couple other projects. There's a family of products out there that are thermally modified woods. There are three or four manufacturers that we know of: Akoya, Adobo, Ebony. There's one other. And basically what they do is there's a treatment of the wood where it's thermally treated that makes it a much more stable material and resistant to rot and pest infestation. They have different warranties. So Akoya comes with a 50-year warranty, which is pretty remarkable for a wood product. Ebony, the warranty ranges from 25 years to 30 years, depending on which product you specify. So we would need to do some more research. The images on the right show, you know, how it is a natural wood product, so it does weather, but it doesn't deteriorate. It's not susceptible to rot the way that, you know, a sort of typical wood siding would be. It's also worth pointing out that the installation of siding on this building, whether it's, you know, straight up Alaskan yellow cedar or it's a thermally modified wood, is going to be done differently than it would be on a house. You know, it's going to have it's going to have an air gap behind it. It'll most likely be a rain screen system so that you're getting some convective air behind the wood siding so that it dries out. You know, at a minimum, we would want to have a breather layer, like a cedar breather layer. But even beyond that, we tend to use strapping to create a cavity behind the wood. You can even do an open joint wood system rather than like shiplapped or tongue and groove. And that really just allows for venting of that exterior skin. It's really just serving as a rain screen. If you go to the next slide, there are a couple examples of these products. They, depending on the product and depending on the particular line within that manufacturer, you can get more or less clear wood. So like the upper two images, actually that whole top row, are what they call their character. I think they call it like the character wood as opposed to the clear wood. Really, it's probably pine, it's knotty pine. They use an inexpensive wood, but then they treat it. And so because it goes through this process, even though it's pine, they still give it the 50-year warranty, or, again, depends on the manufacturer. The clear wood is more like what you see in the bottom two examples, where the grain is tighter and you don't have visible knots and things. So it's really it's a question of character, what you want the wood to look like. We're going to price this as an alternate. It's more expensive than, just the stained Alaskan yellow cedar siding would be, but it significantly reduces your maintenance costs over time. 50-year warranty is pretty significant. So I think we'll want to evaluate that. And then sort of along those lines, another option that we're going to have them price, again, just so we understand the sort of relative costs of these, would be slate shingle. We use slate shingle on the Norwell Library for the very reason that, I mentioned the thermally treated woods, which is, this was a wet environment, very shady. We knew it was not going to dry out very easily, and we wanted to use a material, especially around the perimeter facing the woods, that was going to be durable. Slate is a 100-year material, maintenance free. You don't have to paint it. You don't really have to do anything to it. Occasionally you may find that you need to replace a shingle or two if they get broken somehow, tree limb falls and hits it or something like that. But for the most part, this is a pretty maintenance-free material. Like the thermally modified wood, it's going to be a higher upfront cost, but the fact that it's a 100-year material is pretty significant. And the character of this shingles, I think, is nice. In the middle there, you see the range of shingles that are available in this region. So we tend to see gray, green, purple, and then this kind of mottled green and purple, which is that fourth one on the right. Norwell is all green. The upper left image is the Heathermore slate, which is that gray slate with kind of black streaks in it. And the top middle image is the mottled green and purple. So you can see in the wall, you get a little more variation from individual piece to individual piece. So you get a little, from a distance, you get a little more kind of tonal variety. They're all about the same cost. It's not until you get into like reds and things like that where there's a significant increase. So these are all available in New England, primarily Vermont. So that's another material we're going to have them price. And then lastly, there's a whole range of fiber cement products on the market. Some are better than others. I would avoid Hardy personally, because I feel like it's really a residential product. It's not, I don't think it's as good a commercial product. I think it's fine on a house, but I don't know that I would recommend doing it for the library. But there are a number of fiber cement manufacturers. These are images from Equitone, which is one of the better companies. Swiss Pearl is another one. They tend to be a more cost-effective material, but they are fiber cement, so they hold up pretty well in moist conditions. So this is, again, and you have a lot of freedom in terms of how that material is put on the wall. This is the bottom right image is larger panels, flush mounted. You can lap it, you can reduce the size of the panels, you know, so there's a lot you can do with patterning and scale with a material like this. It's basically cut to size. So it's not like there's a sort of it's not like a brick where there is a standard unit size that you have to work with. You can kind of determine what that size is. And so you have a lot of freedom in terms of how you put it on your building and what the overall scale and texture is. So this we'll have them price this as an alternate as well. So we'll have 4 exterior siding options that we can evaluate in terms of cost. We are really at the end of our schematic design phase. We've got a few more days here to tie up our pricing set. We are starting to get materials from consultants. We just got a package from our solar consultant. Marianne, I spoke with Becky earlier about the grant that you guys are pursuing that's due next week. So we have some information that I can pass on to you and Becky related to that. So there's information about the size of the system, the type of panel they're using, the cost per watt. It's you know, based on their estimate, it's going to be roughly a $250,000 item, I think. So I think $250 a watt is what they were saying, and we're looking at a roughly 100 kilowatt array. So that's about where we expected it to be, about 250. So that's
Matt,
where we
is
are.
that installed?
I believe so. We just got that package yesterday, and I haven't
Okay.
spoken to Stephen yet about it. I think that's the installed price,
Okay.
but I want to make sure that it's installed and that it includes all of the inverters and, you know, it's soup to nuts.
Okay.
And I'll confirm that before I forward that information to you and Becky.
Thank you.
And that was it, I believe. Steamrolling ahead for Friday's deadline, which we'll also submit to you all once we issue that.
I'm assuming that the little reconfigurations that we've been discussing in this meeting will not affect that pricing set.
I don't think
Yes.
so.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. And frankly, we don't have time between now and the
Right.
pricing set to look at that, but that's something that we can continue to look at in DD for sure.
Okay.
I think the scope will be pretty well captured in the SD set, and there's still some room to move things and consider some alternates. Any other questions? Comments?
Nice work.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thanks.
I ditto that.
Thanks, Stephen. Any thoughts on the materials, exterior materials?
Is the slate more expensive?
Slate is more expensive. I don't know how it will compare to the thermally modified wood. But it's going to be more expensive than wood siding would be for sure. But it's, you know, like a lot of things that you have to weigh the upfront cost relative to the overall life of it and the maintenance.
And we'll have a price, like we'll have a sheet that has siding options, and slate is X number of dollars. Yellow cedar is X number of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll be able to see
Mhm.
exactly what the differences are.
Yeah.
And the slate is a 100-year product, right?
Right.
We put it up
That's right.
there and it lasts.
Yeah, so slate is 100 years. The thermally modified wood is somewhere in the 25 to 50 year range, depending on the product. Wood siding, you know, it can last that long, but it needs to be maintained.
Right, so then there's a maintenance cost
There's
involved
a
in
maintenance
it.
cost, yeah,
Right.
and I think as the initial cost goes down, the maintenance cost goes up, with maybe the exception of the fiber cement. I think fiber cement, there isn't a whole lot of maintenance to it. It's really just how long is it going to last before it starts to fail and it needs to be replaced. And we'll get some warranty information on those, but it's not like you're going to stain it again or paint it like you would with wood siding. It kind of is what it is. It's pre-finished, it has a certain life, and then you need to replace it.
I would just like to add that I think that if you use slate as a siding as opposed to a roofing, I would venture to say it's a 200-year life.
Yeah, it could be. That's true. It doesn't get the weather that it does on a roof, for sure.
And the Vermont quarried slates are some of the hardest slates that just seem to last and last and last on roofs.
Yeah.
I would just like to say that the slate comes in purple, and that is very exciting to me.
Are you gonna have purple shells like West Tisbury?
Everything is going to be purple.
Okay.
We did not pick those purple shells, but just for the record.
There's not a purple thing in my house, but I do love that purple and green slate. And I was looking at purple marmoleum. We did a kitchen renovation here at my house, a mid-range kitchen renovation, and we did a marmoleum floor. We did not do purple.
They
But we
have
did
purple marmoleum in West Tisbury,
They
Yes,
do.
along with lime green.
And lime green.
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Lauren, I don't know if you've noticed on a sunny day in that children's room with the lime green floor, when the sun is streaming through the windows, the light reflects off the lime green floor and turns the white ceiling green.
Holy
It's-
cow.
It is really green.
I don't think
bet
we've been
there are
fortunate
kids
enough to
who
be
just
there on a
love
sunny
that.
day.
Yes.
Sorry.
All right. Well, the closest any of us may get to that purple and green slate is this picture right here, but I'm
Maybe.
looking forward to seeing the pricing.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with how the floor plan is coming out. And then as far as things like the roofing and all of that kind of stuff, I'm really hoping that Jeff will chime in with questions and comments if there's something, structural or important that should be mentioned.
Yeah, we didn't talk about roof material today, although Marianne, we touched on it when we spoke with you earlier this week. We are thinking that the roof, because you never are going to see this roof, really, it's going to have, most of it's covered in photovoltaic panels. You can't see it from the road, you don't see it from the sides. You might be able to catch a glimpse of it from the very back. But we're thinking that, just doing like a gray TPO membrane might be the most cost-effective roofing material. It's easy to deal with the penetrations for the solar array, and it's a good, it performs well, and it's got a decent warranty on it, and it's not super expensive. So we think that's
Tell us more about it. I think Penny said, what is that?
TPO roof. It's a thermoplastic roof with heat welded seams. So it's very watertight, it's easy because of the way that the seams are done. It's easy to deal with roof penetrations, kind of counter flashing roof penetrations and things. And we will have those for the solar array. We're trying to pick a system that reduces or minimizes those number of penetrations for that reason. And I think that's pushing us towards one of the three that we looked at. But that's what we're thinking, as opposed to, you know, like a standing seam metal roof, which would be considerably more expensive, and it really doesn't seem to be any need to do that. The roof edges would be metal, like you see here on the edge of the Norwell roof. That's it's a sheet metal flashing around the edge of the roof that conceals the edge of the structural wood decking and the rigid insulation, which sits on top of that. Jeff, I don't know if you have any
Is that
thoughts about TPO.
TPO? Is that TPO a toxic plastic or what is it made of?
Toxic when it burns, but not normally.
Sorry, Jeff, can
But
you
they
say
all
that?
do.
again?
Well, I think they're toxic when they burn. But I don't think it's toxic. When it's
it
just sitting on the roof.
Toxic in the manufacturing process?
Could be.
Just curious.
What's your view, Matt, of TPO versus PVC?
We have not done,
Big sort of-
we haven't done a PVC roof before. And I don't remember actually what the cost differential is. I know that they're not the same cost. I can't remember which is more. Do you
I'm a
have
little
a preference?
concerned is, well, at UMass, we hired Gale Associates a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
You probably know those guys.
Yeah.
And they, at least when I left, they were still not positive on TPO roofs.
Okay.
Just because there hasn't been enough history of them in the United States. There's a lot of history of them in Europe.
Yeah.
They kept pushing, and at UMass, we did a lot of Sarnafil. And I'm concerned, no matter which roof we go with, we have a thick enough roof that when somebody's up there wandering around doing maintenance on those collectors, they don't end up putting a hole in that roof. So, but whatever material we end up going with, we need to make sure that it's thick enough and it's got enough tensile strength to deal with people dropping stuff on it.
Yeah, I mean,
Also, we had a problem
Go
on
ahead.
UMass where we get eagles coming up and putting holes in our roofs. So again, we need something pretty stout.
Okay. We often will specify like there's a walking layer that you can specify on certain areas of the roof. So like around mechanical equipment, we would have that. We might
Exactly.
want to consider having, because we've got that 4-foot perimeter around the solar array, which is really for the ability to get, around the perimeter of it. We might want to specify that in those areas.
You walk off that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, the roof, the PV is gonna go some way towards protecting the roof that it sits over, right? From birds, things falling on the roof. It's gonna restrict where people can walk. We are gonna have gaps in that PV array because we're gonna have to coordinate. Well, number one, we want to have a certain, grid size that makes sense in terms of maximizing the amount of PV you have, but also making it reasonable to service a panel that's in the middle of that section of that cluster of panels. So there's kind of a sweet spot in terms of how many aisles you provide. We're also going to have some roof penetrations for vents for the bathrooms and the kitchen, and maybe some mechanical. That I think the intake and exhaust we're hoping to do through wall below the eave, for the ERVs, for instance. But we will have some penetrations that we've got to coordinate. So those gaps in between also probably would want that same kind of walkable layer on it.
Exactly.
We can have our estimator price PVC. I mean, it's just a different dollar, square foot dollar amount. So.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do TPO and PVC?
Yeah.
And then to the wood siding that you just talked about, can you define a little bit better the treatment on this? You talk
I-
about, is this like what is this treatment on it, I guess? Is it
I
a
don't
chemical?
know. I think it's I thought it was a thermal treatment. Hang on, I'm just gonna Google their website to see if they describe it in any better detail.
While Matt's looking that up, Marianne, just looking ahead to next week, would we meet as a committee next Tuesday?
I thought we decided at the last meeting that we wouldn't meet next Tuesday
Yeah,
because really what we're gonna be doing now is waiting for the pricing package to come back.
yeah,
And so we
Right.
would meet the next time, which is
once we have that in hand.
May something.
Yeah, got it. Great.
May 16th. So does that mean that we won't have a design team meeting on the 10th either, or will we?
I think we should, I don't know, Matt, what do you think?
We're not gonna have the estimate back until the week of the 15th, so I don't think it makes sense to meet prior to that. The next, on the 2-week cadence, then the next meeting would be the 24th. We could maybe switch that to the 17th. That's probably the earliest that we would be ready to meet.
You're
If
gonna
if
get
it
the
makes a
cost estimate
difference,
of
sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
the estimates on the 15th, because I think we want time to review it before we meet.
Then we could keep our meeting on the 24th, and that would give us a week, plus a couple of days if he goes a little bit beyond the 2 weeks. So maybe that's better, just to keep the meeting on the 24th.
Andrea
Right,
and I
what do you
will
think,
not
Laura?
be, Andrea and I will not be available on the 24th. We have an application workshop for our new grant round that day from 1 to 3. So that will not, we will not be at that meeting.
Right.
So you don't expect to get the pricing until Monday, the 15th. And we have a full committee meeting on the 16th. So you're thinking that we won't have enough time, Jeff, to review that. So you're probably going to want a day to review it, right, Matt? And
Yeah, and I
I
think
think
we would want to, when we meet with the committee, go with the estimate and a list of kind of value engineering options to consider.
so what
Right.
if we did something, what if we had a meeting on the 23rd, Tuesday, the 23rd, a full committee meeting? Do you need that? Does that make sense?
I mean, that should work. It has everything to do with what day we get the estimate from the estimator. If he delivers on the 15th, which is what we're expecting, then yes, the 23rd would be reasonable. If he calls us and says he's having a hard time getting the numbers from his, mechanical electrical estimator, and it's not going to be until the 18th, then it's a little tighter. But I think the 23rd is probably a reasonable date.
Okay,
the whole
so
thing.
Stephen and Jeff, are you available on the 23rd?
Yes,
I don't see Stephen, but I'll just assume he's saying
Yes.
yes. Okay, thank you. And Lauren, are you available on the 23rd for a 7 PM meeting?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I'll email Elaine and get that set up and we'll probably cancel that May 16th meeting. And then maybe what we'll do is the full committee will stay at their regular schedule and then have a meeting on the 30th. And then the next design meeting would be, so it would be the 17th. And then what would be I don't even know so the next design meeting would actually be the 10th. And then the 24th, which Lauren and Andrea can't attend. But we could switch it up and maybe go to the 31st.
Yeah, I think there's no reason to meet on the 10th, and
Okay, All right.
so yeah, the 31st probably makes
okay,
sense.
alrighty. Because, okay, the design meeting on the 31st. Okay, at noon?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And Jeff, to get back to your question about what is the process for the thermally modified wood. So I'm reading here, thermally modified wood is wood that's cured by raising its temperature to 390 degrees Fahrenheit, which in turn minimizes, if not completely eliminates, any deformities or problems that may occur throughout the natural dehumidification process. So it makes the wood more resistant to decay and rot than traditional wood. They do say that if you seal it, stain it or protect it in some way, it will further prolong the life of it, like any wood product would. But it's that thermal process that is increasing the performance and therefore allowing them to get you the warranty. I don't know what makes Akoya able to offer a 50-year warranty, whereas Kebony offers a 25 to 30-year warranty. So the process must be different. And I assume there's a cost difference between them as well as a result, but we'll find that out.
Do you know how long that product's been on the market? I mean, has it withstood the test of time yet?
I doubt it's been on the market for 50 years. I don't know. I mean, I know we've known about it for the last, I'd say probably 15 years, 10 to 15 years, but I don't know. I don't know how long ago it started. I also suspect that it started in Europe and it's more recently being used in the US.
and are there 3 manufacturers? Because we're gonna have to deal with that issue.
There are actually, so we list 3 here: Akoya, Adobo, and Kebony. There's another one called, can't remember the name, Dominic, that we learned about yesterday, Thermo something or other, which tends to be a more expensive option, which is why we didn't list it here. But
Okay.
And how long do the cement fiber sidings last?
I don't recall, and I suspect it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'm guessing it's kind of in the same range as the thermally modified wood at that 25 to 30 years. I'm guessing.
Have you guys used?
We have used it, although not in a while. It's not our preferred material, frankly. It's
Got a very commercial look to it.
It does, yeah.
We have
Uh,
a couple of libraries, Walpole and Northborough, I believe, are both fiber cement. They're from more than a decade ago and they still look the same, so.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't used it in a while. I mean, it's one of those materials that gets considered a lot and then ruled out by a lot of our clients. The last time we did it was on a municipal project in Maryland, which is probably 15 years ago at this point.
Yeah. We used it a couple of years ago in the student union at UMass. It's, it's holding up.
Mhm.
It's a different look.
Right.
I think we'd have to go see some of these, I think, Mary Ann, some of these different products in real use
Yes.
to make you comfortable with it.
And, and then we have to see the price difference too.
Sure,
And the whole,
Yeah.
We have to see the pricing.
exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of things are gonna change once we see the pricing.
Yeah. And I do think also that a wood building can be maintained. I mean, the wood is gonna be, of these options, I'm guessing it's gonna be the least expensive, although fiber cement, because the unit sizes tend to be bigger, the labor costs go down. So we may find that fiber cement and wood are not that far off from each other.
Isn't fiber cement hardy board?
Hardy board is a fiber
Fiber
product,
cement.
yes.
So you can just come to my house if you want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, but okay, so that's a question, Matt. So do these commercial fiber cement boards, like what you're showing us here doesn't look like siding on a house. So, but I'm
No.
assuming you can have it manufactured however you want it. So if you want it to be like clapboards, just regular clapboards, you could.
Yeah, although yes, I think you could. Generally speaking, when you're using a product like this, you're not reducing it down to a 5-inch board width. You're taking advantage of the fact that you can do larger unit sizes and cover more area more quickly to reduce the labor cost.
But you could do a board and batten, right?
You could, yeah. I mean, the thing about this material that is a plus is that the sort of options are almost limitless in terms of how it's applied to the building. You can change the texture, you can change the scale, things like the battens, Andrea, that you're talking about, or overlapping panels as opposed to doing them flush installed. Like this upper right image, you can see that's a flush installation with an open joint, kind of rain screen application. You could also lap them, like lap siding or shingles. There's a huge range available to you.
Mhm.
And
Matt, this is a more general question. Are you seeing construction costs continue to rise or level off or start to go down? What are you seeing in general?
we are hearing from construction managers and estimators that pricing is leveling off. Prices aren't coming down, but escalation is not growing at the same rate that it had been. And so as we're forecasting projects, the numbers are coming down because we're carrying less escalation from year to year.
Okay.
And so whereas, in the last year or two, we've seen 12% now, estimators and construction managers are telling us to carry 5 to 6%. So that's good for this project.
It is.
I'm sorry to do this, everybody, but I have a 2 o'clock that I have to hop
Okay.
off for. So I don't know, Dominic, if you are able to stay on, if there are any other questions, but I need to.
I can, yes.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, Matt.
I
Bye-bye.
have a 2 o'clock too. Have a great day,
Alright.
everybody.
The only question I would have, and maybe Dominic, you can answer this one. It's the availability or the time frame lead time on electrical equipment. That's 12, 15 months that I'm hearing on some things that, you know, kind of longer than your planned construction period.
Right. Yeah. It's a question for you and Neil too, I guess, and you know how this. I guess we'll wait to see on pricing, and we've seen what you've seen, Roger. It's still holding true, right, with transformers and different things. The long lead times is definitely a consideration, and how that gets handled with early release or what. That's a bigger question, I think. For sure. You know, with photovoltaics, I haven't installed photovoltaics. We're doing it now. It hasn't gone in yet on another project in the office. Just to get a sense of, you know, some of those electrical elements, right, which are a bit different too. I don't have a good sense on it, just knowing wholesale electrical is definitely considerable, some of these lead times. Yeah.
Yes, whereas other materials, you have a choice of materials or systems that you can kind of weigh one versus the other and try to time it, but you don't have that choice with electrical components so much.
No, that's true. Yeah. That's a good point.
Any other questions?
Just Marianne, did we settle on the May 30th as a meeting also?
So I have Tuesday, May 23rd at 7 p.m. full committee meeting. And then I wrote down May 31st at noon. Let me look at the calendar and Wednesday, May 31st at noon for a design committee meeting. So that would be our first design committee meeting post cost estimate.
23rd and 31st.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
And you'll let Neil know.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Terrific. Okay.
Neil is here still. Oh, no, he just left.
No.
Yeah, he texted me that he was going to leave
Yeah.
early, but I didn't check to see if he actually left. So, okay. All righty. Okay. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you. I'll
I
send
think
this
we're
on.
making good progress, and you'll keep us posted on your end, Dominic. You know, if that pricing set comes in early, maybe you could just let me know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will do. Yeah.
Right.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah,
I'm
we'll all
always
be
gonna-
fingers crossed. Fingers
Are
crossed.
you gonna send the
Pricing
estimate
set.
documents out?
Correct.
Both the drawings and then the estimate when you get it. Will you send it to us before the meeting?
Yes, for sure. I would like to issue the set when we do to the cost estimate. So first thing next week, I plan on getting that. I'll get that to you guys. I know we'll be up against it for this Friday, and I'll make sure you guys have it in hand as well. And I'll send this to you as well, what I presented today, for you to kind of be able to review some of these pages we kind of flew through a little bit. So yeah.
All right, thank you.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you
Thank
in
you.
a few weeks.
Yeah, sounds good. Fingers crossed, everybody.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.